Ladies and gentlemen, episode number 55 of my AI love affair. This is part 2 of an ethical conversation about AI where I am interviewing Leopold. In episode 53, he interviews me. The last episode was part 1 of the conversation of me interviewing him and the ideas on how a philosopher would use AI to communicate worth. And this is a continuation of the ethical considerations and conversations when it comes to AI. We talk about combating misinformation, which is a big deal, the importance of critical thinking, leadership and ethics, and AI learning in content creation. So, come, let's learn.
Hey, it's Ronsley. Welcome, you AI geek, to this podcast, My AI Love Affair. Consider this podcast your digital compass, guiding you through the labyrinth that is business growth using artificial intelligence. Running a business as a creative can sometimes be like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. But what if you had a secret tool that could align all the colors for you? That is AI. It's like a master key unlocking multiple doors. Thanks for being here. Let's learn.
I don't know how to stop the misinformation. How would you advise me?
That's a tough one because even if I helped you with that or you helped me with that, it's just me and you, right? So I think the biggest challenge is how do you spread a new approach? And that's why we need a new way of education. Even for us, like I don't just mean schooling. Like we need a proper education on how to think and how to really master certain ideas and certain approaches. And I'll give you an example. When ChatGPT first started taking traction, you go on LinkedIn and you see all these people talking about prompts and take my PDF prompt for $1 or just for one like or what have you. And you say, okay, I'm gonna try these prompts. But most people will say, okay, I'm gonna take these prompts and apply them, okay? My approach, and this is what I advise everyone to do, is learn how to think like a prompt engineer. You don't have to go and master it, but learn what's the thinking behind it. And I think that's one of the great things you did in the course that I took with you is we're teaching us how to think about the prompt, like how the elements are segmented, how to think about, and I think that's a great exercise in rational thinking. And this is what I strongly advise everyone to do, like, because it's so hard. If you don't know how to judge something, an idea, an argument, it's impossible. You go on Twitter now and you're in a rabbit hole, right? You don't know what's going on. And it's a hard exercise that most people are not willing to do.
Sure.
It takes effort to think,
Yeah.
What
have you managed to do with getting those prompts when you've gotten them? Because, I haven't found really much use in copying and pasting prompts myself. But when you started using it, how did you use it? Did you find it useful? What was happening? And how did you decide to move on from that?
Yeah. So I took the essence of what you were teaching us. And I'll give you an example. Briefly put, now, if you want to communicate any idea, forget AI, right? There are some principles that you have to have in mind, right? You need to know what are you talking about, right? To whom, what for, and what's the key idea that you want to share, right? Or what do you want to say about that topic, right? So, and these are basic, subject, theme, audience, what do they think, what's the promise to them from that piece of communication. Now, that's the essential. You take that and you teach it to AI, ChatGPT or what have you, and now you're gonna create a new prompt, right? So follow that structure. If you're writing something, tell him, it's a subject about blah, blah, blah. What I wanna say about it is this. Here are my audience, my objective is this. And now you have the understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, of how to design a prompt for that, for a piece of communication.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned from it. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm experimenting with it. So many of my clients, they don't have time. They're CEOs. They don't have time to design their audience persona if they want to find their niche or what have you. So I speak with them. I take all the information and I use ChatGPT to help me design that persona, right? And I build it step by step after I talk. I take from here, I take from there, and start building it. And after a while, now I have a persona, right? An avatar. So this is how I use it, you know? And it's not just blind dumping of prompts or what have you. Because I'm not going to get better if I do that.
What are the other ways that you're using artificial intelligence?
I have something that I call Speaking Vault. And I built this for myself, and now I help my client build it. And basically, it's like a treasure trove of ideas, observation, stories that they can record. And I use Notion usually. They can record it there and use it for their speeches. Because now, all of these pieces of observation and ideas are modular. So if I'm talking about leadership, I take a module from here, a module from there, and I create a new speech.
So what exactly is in the vault? What is kept? The stories or analogies?
Yeah, the vault is made of a formula that I created called the light formula. And all the information are spread out in that matter. So what I do is I developed a prompt that understands that framework of the light formula. So basically now I have a prompt for the framework. So I use it and I feed it the information that I'm getting from my clients to help them build that vault. That's a key part of my usage. The other part is, as I said, persona. And the third, which I'm loving, is brainstorming and argumentation. And it's amazing because sometimes it's very hard for you to find a conversation with someone who's really interested in ideas.
It's true.
It's so true.
It's true. We are just talking about people and events.
I want to engage with a conversation, with arguments. And I ask him, act like Socrates and give me these arguments.
Yeah.
Many times I put myself in the audience shoe and I say, I'm the audience, I'm a CEO and I'm struggling with 1, 2, 3, 4. Act like a brand strategist and ask me questions, or I'm gonna tell you my pain point and just give me what you think. So I have this kind of conversation, and what I feel is AI is removing the blank page, the fear of the white paper, right? But again, there's a thin line between having a white paper and introspecting and thinking, and then suddenly you have it filled.
Yes.
That's kind of the tension that exists now. And that's why I go back to the point, you must learn how to observe and think and judge what is it giving you. Think in essential terms. But yeah, that's mainly how I'm using it.
So when you're having these conversations, because it's very exciting to hear how you're using it, primarily because...
And I'm still an amateur, I have to say. I'm not.
No, but
I'm
it's
not an
brilliant.
expert.
I mean, it's very unique, very intelligent in the way you're using it, and hats off to you to use it that way. When you're having these conversations, are you seeing bias? Because that's another common question I get asked, but I don't have these kind of philosophical questions, conversations necessarily with artificial intelligence.
Yes, and again, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the way it's working now is it's collecting information from the web. And I started talking about leadership. Now, the first response that I got is that leadership is all about serving other people, which is the concept of servant leadership. Now, the first question I had in mind is, why would it think this way? Why would it give me that leadership is about servitude? You see? Now, probably because the dominant figures in our culture and influencers are talking about servant leadership, right? And that's what I love about it. And then I said, okay, what are the other style of leadership that existed through history? And then it started giving...
Through history. So you mentioned that. That is an important part.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why I'm saying I have a conversation with... And it starts feeding me information that there are different kinds of leadership. This is what happened. And then I take one part and I say, how is that different from that? So I start investigating the ideas. I ask it even, can you give me resources and books that I can read on these topics?
Yes.
And I mean, it's going to take a lot of time to do that on Google.
Yes.
But suddenly you have it in the palm of your hand.
Yes.
So I love that perspective. And I love that it can act in so many different ways.
It's fascinating the way you're using it when it comes to artificial intelligence. It's the philosophy behind what the values and why you're using it and the goal, but also the framework that you use to interact When you have the framework in place, then the prompt becomes easy. But if you're just randomly trying to figure out what the prompt is, then without a framework, it is harder to put that into play. Sometimes you don't even know you have a framework, but because you've been thinking this way, you kind of have this framework on how you think. And we spoke about that. That's a way to like extrapolate and put it over another field altogether. So take something and then apply that to another place. And that is so useful.
I want to show you something
Yes.
that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
Okay, quickly. So I was looking at my phone today. I'm out of ideas and looking around. And then I saw a picture. Just a minute. Okay. Here's what I saw.
Let's do that.
Okay, so that's my mom
Yeah.
standing on the balcony in Lebanon and saying goodbye to me. And she does that every single time I leave the house for the past 4 years, right? Every time, no matter if it's raining, she does that. Now, ChatGPT can never know that. And that's why I always say to my clients, you must give your audience a piece of you, right? This is a piece of me, right? Now, here's what AI can do for me. If you look at the picture,
Yes.
there's something beyond my mom that is so interesting that I'm now analyzing, okay? I might turn it into a whole article, I don't know. But one of the questions was like, what is it about us as, many people in Lebanon that we take care of our house internally so much. We're very tidy, we're very much into design. But if you look at the outside, look at this.
Yep.
It still has bullets from 1975. So something like, so I want to understand the philosophy and the psychology behind our behavior from an observation of a picture. Now I'm coming up with something absolutely unique that is mine with the help of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
I want to understand the architecture.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yes.
what happened in that area that we still keep these kind of ideas. And all of these will be tied, integrated with some kind of an idea related to communication. And this whole idea that give them a piece of you.
I'm writing my next book on artificial intelligence, of course, how to be the chief AI officer of your business. And it could be very technical.
Yeah.
But how would you suggest I give a piece of myself in the book? How do I make it? How would you advise me on making the book mine, unique, and a page turner?
But I think the first principle is to share stories, personal stories about yourself, your life, that you're willing to share, right? That hold an important lesson that is universal enough. Because at the end of the day, no matter the tool and the technology, whether it's AI or what have you, at the end of the day, what we need as a human beings is lessons and words of wisdom so we can use them in our life.
What you disagree when it comes to Mo's philosophy on artificial intelligence?
So one of his premise is that we need to be more kind. For example, on social media, we need to change the way we approach it so that AI can learn from us and integrate better ideas, better ethics. I agree with that. But here's the problem. He doesn't tell us how, right? It's easy for me to tell you, well, you know what? We need to be kinder. We need to be more ethical. We need to stop being so biased or harass each other on social media. But there's no framework, ethical framework that tells me how, right? Why? Because we live in a world that the dominant idea in terms of morality is very subjective.
Yeah.
What's good for you might not be good for me. But that's the problem. So morality and ethics is we treating as a very non-scientific subject. If it's non-scientific and very subjective, then you don't have an objective framework, which means you can't really decide. What we need is a scientific framework, okay, that tells us why this kind of behavior is good or bad, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have it. I mean, we have a lot of ideas from great philosophers, but the dominant philosophy is very subjective, is very relative, and so you end up with subjective ideas.
Having a scientific framework is pretty much like saying this is the only way for it to be right. How do you think that plays a part in, even if someone did come up with a scientific framework, wouldn't that be extremely biased?
Absolutely not. So what I mean by scientific framework is that it's a framework grounded in human nature and reality. Human nature and nature, of course, and reality, right? And so any scientific proof in any field needs that kind of a process. You need to ground that observation, that experimentation in reason and reality, right? And the human nature, right? Yeah. For it to be good is to be life promoting. For it to be bad is to be destructive. Now that's the first scientific observation that we need, which was identified by Aristotle, right? That you have to look always about the identity of the subject you're talking about, like a human being, and the identity of other things or the behavior of other things, and you put them in relation. Is it good for you to be a servant leader? Now here it gets complicated, because the only way for you to analyze that is to go back to the question of self-interest. Like, as a human being, will it be life promoting for me or not? You know, so that's how you analyze whether it's good for you or not. And this takes a lot of work, but that is actually what is required. You know, so the first question would pop up if I'm looking at servant leadership is, why do I have to serve anyone or ask anyone to serve me? Why even using this language, right? And why should I treat all people equally? Not all people are equal. You've been working, I mean, we're equal before the law, and we should be, but maybe you're working 18 hours a day, all your life, you're achieving whatever you're achieving, and I'm sitting and watching Netflix all day. We're not equal, right? So you've earned your leadership role, I haven't. You've earned a high salary, I haven't. So I cannot come and demand under the proposition of servant leadership that you're not allowed to have a car parking because you should be a servant leader. And you're laughing, but it's amazing. This is an article published by Harvard Business Review. So all of these ideas, the AI is learning from us, from what the content is out there. And that's why I feel that now it's so hard for us to go and teach it a new, rational, reality-oriented way to judge right and wrong, and how to lead a better life.
Hey, AI Geek. Thanks for listening. Your job doesn't stop here. I want you to lend your voice to the conversation. So you can join those conversations, discussions, new trainings, new recordings, and the rest of the AI Geeks by going to aigeeks.co/Discord. Also, share this podcast with a friend, another potential AI geek. Until then, much love.